You've entered BOOKSTORM with Kristen Civiletto and me, Chris Storm. This is a podcast devoted to best-selling books that matter, books that make a difference. We're diving down deep with beloved authors about their stories. We're exposing hot-button topics and heartfelt themes, the issues that affect each of us in our own lives, as siblings, parents, partners, friends, as human beings. We're braving new ideas, fresh thoughts, hard lessons, and important truths. Those kinds of things that stay with us long after we turn the last page and close the book. Welcome back, BOOKSTORM followers, book lovers, podcasters, YouTubers. We are listening to all of the mail you're sending us. We see the kind of books you want. We know the very best authors that you want to hear, and we have one of them today. The amazing Kate White is here with us today. Welcome, Kate.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Kristen.
We're super excited because we've had Kate on here before, so now she's like an old friend to us, and we just are super excited to see her smiling face here if you're watching us on YouTube. And we're here to talk about a fantastic new book, Between Two Strangers. We're going to dive down deep into this book. But first, if you're new as a Kate White fan, or maybe you've been following her for years, but you don't know her backstory, let me tell you a little bit more about her. So Kate White is the New York Times bestselling author of 17 novels of suspense. She has 9 standalone psychological thrillers, including The Secrets You Keep, The Second Husband, and now we have Between Two Strangers. And she has 8 Bailey Wiggins mysteries, which we love. For 14 years, here's a little something you might not know. Kate served as editor-in-chief of Cosmopolitan magazine, which, by the way, became the most successful magazine in single copy sales in the U.S. under her supervision and expertise. And that's quite an accomplishment, Kate. We're thankful, however, that she decided to leave Cosmo and concentrate full-time on her passion for writing. We have all thoroughly been entertained by these novels, but also really led into some deep self-thought, inflection, and maybe learning something about ourselves. So Kate's very first mystery, If Looks Could Kill, was a Kelly Ripa book club pick and an Amazon #1 bestseller. She has been nominated for all kinds of awards. I can't go through all of them, but I have to say the International Thrillers Award, which is very prestigious. She is a speaker at libraries, book conferences, organizations, and has also appeared in several television shows, The Today Show, CBS This Morning, Morning Joe, Good Morning America. And as if this isn't enough, Kate is the editor of the Mystery Writers of America cookbook. No wonder I love all of your recipes from Uruguay. Now I know.
I'm a lousy cook, but I love collecting recipes.
Fantastic. It looks fantastic. She also has which was a groundbreaking Wall Street Journal bestseller called Why Good Girls Don't Get Ahead, But Gutsy Girls Do. That's pretty cool too. Some career books that Kate is involved in. So Kate, welcome back to BOOKSTORM. We're thrilled to have you here today, and we can't wait to talk about this book that Kristen and I really loved.
Oh, thanks for having me back.
Well, Kate, as you know, we like to give our listeners a little bit about the story without giving away spoilers, and that's kind of hard to do in this case. So I've got kind of a short description, and I would love it, of course, if you added anything at the end. Skylar Moore is a struggling artist, and one day she receives a call from a lawyer saying that she needs to come in to discuss a private matter. She's a little skeptical. He convinces her to come in, and when she gets there, she hears that she has been the recipient of a large inheritance. Now, this is an amount of money that will change her life and allow her to do some other things that she has long wanted to do, but she doesn't know who this person is, this benefactor. She learns it's Christopher Whaley, and the name doesn't mean much to her. But when she sees his picture, it kind of jogs some memories. And this was a man who many, many years ago, she met at a hotel bar. They had a little fling, but that was it, the end of the story. So why he left her this sum is something that she really endeavors to find out. She learns, of course, that his family is a little bit confused and very suspicious too. In fact, the widow accuses her of having an affair while they were married and maybe threatens some revenge. But Skylar, as she starts to really dig in and start to understand what's happening here, she begins to learn and understand more about some secrets in her family and things that have haunted her for a very long time. In fact, these things begin to rock her world and even place her in danger. So, with that background, I don't know if you want to add anything, Kate.
That sums it up. The only thing about the book, and this was a little bit different for me, I alternate, not quite alternate, but there are stories from 12 years ago in the book, chapters that deal with the disappearance of Skylar's sister. And the weekend that she met Christopher Whaley, who she only knew as CJ, happened to be the weekend her sister disappeared. So as she struggles to figure out why has he left her this amount of money, and it's $3.5 million, she has to go back to a period of her life that was very traumatic for her. So it's kind of two stories in one. It's Skylar today and Skylar 12 years ago, but she's got to go back because she's not going to be able to keep the money if she can't figure out why he left it to her and sort of fight off his wife's efforts to make sure she doesn't get it.
Excellent. And you just alluded to so many of the cool themes in this book, but one of them is putting the pieces together in your past. And I know we're going to dive into that. I think Chris is going to kick us off. You ready to brave the storm?
I sure am. I've got to say, readers, guess what? Kate White does it again. I opened this book and I was instantly caught up in the spinning, swirling mystery of intriguing clues and paranoid suspicions until I was looking back over my shoulder with Skylar Moore. And I have to talk about Skylar. I loved her. I loved everything about this character because who of any of us doesn't have things from our past that whether we like it or not, we carry it with us. I thought of something very intriguing, and I wonder if you, as the writer, did this on purpose. Skylar had an artwork of collages that she made and handcrafted. They were bits and pieces of paper, ceramic, fabric, photos, things that were scavenged from old shops and secondhand stores. Wow. I would love to get my hands on one of those. It sounds beautiful. Isn't this like life? Skylar's past came back to haunt her in both good and bad ways. And Kate, as the writer, what do you think Skylar's life collage might look like? How about yours? And how about yours? And can we really ever escape or forget our past? Does it stay with us forever in underlying ways that maybe we don't even admit? And is that what Skylar was dealing with?
Yeah, I think for Skylar, she's haunted by her past, the disappearance of her sister, and she's a collage artist. And so when it comes down to trying to figure out why Christopher Whaley left her all this money, she thinks that maybe if she creates a collage about the night they spent together, maybe it will trigger some memories that they're not memories that are unrecovered. They're simply memories she's tamped down. So she puts this one collage together just about their night, and it does help her. And I think, Chris, to what you're saying about our past, I do think we need to move on from our past, but at the same time, we need to recognize what might be torturing us. A friend of mine is doing some trauma work right now, and she says it's been very helpful to, instead of just trying to constantly escape that, to work with a therapist to understand how that affected her and the role it's played in decisions she's made and behavior. And for Skylar, she would almost make two collages. A collage of her life before her sister disappeared, and a collage afterwards, because she was an upbeat, happy girl wearing a flippy skirt and a jean jacket before then. And she's really been almost a little bit of a recluse in the years since. And I actually made a collage once for myself about my life. It was really interesting to see the little magazine pieces that I picked to glue down. It was really fun. So I think that would be a fun exercise for anyone to do.
It's absolutely therapeutic. It really is. And I wonder if therapists know about this, because you could take bits and pieces of sorrow and happy. And maybe when you put it all together, the happy outweighs the sad, hopefully. But Skylar was the perfect example of, yes, like you said, Kate, wise words. We can't linger in that past. But if we just totally ignore it, does it continue to bother us? And maybe we need to look at it and put it somewhere.
Right.
Face it and give it away, put it over here. But very wise watching Skylar's path. And I think every reader is going to be able to relate to her. Beautiful character.
I do think we, as you said, Chris, we all have things from the past that bother us. And, she's pushed them away. But in the course of this novel, she is forced to address them in order to secure that she's going to get this money. And in the end, that does her a lot of good. And she comes to see something about her own relationship with her mother that isn't the most pleasant thing, but she's been trying to buy into another story for years. And she finally realizes that's not the real story.
Mm-hmm. So fascinating. Loved it.
Yeah, I'd like to press into that even just a little bit more because, your characters, actually more than one, struggle with guilt and shame over things that occurred in their past. And it really made me think how we all wrestle with the woulda, coulda, shouldas.
Right.
And right, those are the things that you're always turning over in your mind on a big scale and even a small scale, even just a daily occurrence. And I was just wondering if you could comment a little further on how your character was really processing that guilt and that shame. Was it through art? And I was wondering, is that something that all of us, maybe there's healthy ways we process, and then there's maybe less healthy ways?
Well, I think the thing for Skylar is that she parks it way far away and doesn't really address it and buys into the story that's perpetuated by her family about what her role was. And a big part of the book is her discovering that what she's always been shown to be her role wasn't really her role. It's interesting. When I was at Cosmo, I had to sell a heck of a lot of magazines on the newsstand. We were the leader, and once we got in that position, you didn't want to dip below a certain amount. And I'd get a call every month, the first of the month, from our newsstand guy. And sometimes he'd be like, Kate, got some bad news for you. January's not looking good. And I'll be like, oh my gosh. So I used to do something I called the rug test, where if I had a loser, I'd throw it down on the rug, and above it, I'd put some of our more recent winning covers, and below it, I would put losers. And with 6 weeks in between when I sent that cover, the loser cover, to the plant, and that moment, I could see things that I hadn't seen before. And that was a big part of my success at Cosmo, because I looked at failures and I didn't just try to, say tomorrow's another day. I try to learn from them. And I've tried to take that lesson into other parts of life, because so often today, and I think particularly with some younger generations, everyone tells us, oh, it's not your fault. Oh, she's just jealous. Or what do they know? And they perpetuate the excuses that we're doing in our own mind. And it can be so helpful to look at our failures and say, is there anything to learn here? Why did I do that? How do I course correct going forward? And we probably don't do that enough today, I think. Baby boomers had a lot of self-loathing, but maybe there's something to be said for that.
Yeah, I like what you're describing, because it's very much about almost a perspective of being able to step back. And a lot of times, for maybe young people, they don't have the benefit of years of perspective. because when you were putting those magazines side by side, you were able to, with time, evaluate and do better
Right.
going forward.
Right.
And I don't think a lot of younger people are thinking in terms of eventually this will make more sense. Eventually you will have a better perspective.
Yeah, that's a good point. I just think you want to be receptive to the idea of failure and learn from it. What was it Bill Gates once said, that you learn best from your, something variation on this, you learn best from your dissatisfied customers. Listen to what they're saying and listen to criticism, and just ask yourself, is there any value in some of that?
Mhm. I think it shows a huge sense of maturity to be able to listen to criticism. And I think as human beings, our first response is no, my beautiful artwork or my project or my child or whatever it is perfect. Don't criticize. But this is
Right.
what this takes. It's a humbling experience.
Yeah.
But if you're looking at the big picture and not immediate gratification, and you truly want to succeed, that's pretty wise what you shared there.
Yeah, Chris, what you just said too about kids, I have friends who are teachers who say that parents just don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear anything negative. They immediately jump to the defense of the child instead of asking themselves, there's a grain of truth here that I need to be mindful of.
Mm-hmm. No wonder Cosmo was so successful. Little tip
rug
for all of
test.
us here.
That rug test really worked.
So I have to say, as far as the mystery that had in this book, you got me. Usually I can figure it out within first 25 pages, at least halfway through, I got it figured out. I suspected everyone and anyone other than Tuna the cat. I did not expect Tuna. But with all really well-founded suspicions, that is the best book when you give legitimate pathways for us to venture down, and you give the reader, you have enough respect for the reader to know that we're intelligent beings. We like a puzzle. Give us clues, but let the truth be in there somewhere. And you did it. So I want to say, this hit me though. People are not always what they seem, including in this story. In fact, as the reader, I thought, are people ever what they seem? As the creator of this beloved character, Skylar, what strengths or wisdom or sixth sense did you instill in her that are necessary to uncover other people's true motives that maybe we could all learn from in the real world?
That's a very good question. And thanks for what you said about laying clues and red herrings, because readers hate to be cheated. They hate that it comes out of nowhere. I would say that with Skylar, one of the main things that helped her, because she's a visual person, she's an artist, and she used her visual skills a lot. She's often looking at body language, whether it's a shrug or somebody not maintaining eye contact and a raised eyebrow. She's always paying attention to that. And I think you need to use what your strength is. We're not all visual, but body language. And I've done a lot of research on body language. It is just a huge part of how people telegraph what they are thinking below the surface. So it is important to try to read people, to accept just what you said, Chris, that we're not all who we appear to be, but work with your own skills in terms of doing that. Maybe you are somebody who just can hear it and you see the discrepancy, but in Skylar's case, she was visual. So that's what she went with, sometimes without even knowing it.
Mm-hmm. It was almost an inherent trait. Sometimes I wondered if it was part of being an artist. Sometimes I feel like artists, including writers, painters, sculptors, are a little more deep thinkers. They see things in the world and in daily life that maybe other people might miss.
Right. She's a visual person, and she didn't even realize sometimes probably how much she was using that to her advantage. But if you, in the book, there's just lots of mentions of her as she's describing a scene. You realize she's paying attention to the person looking in the middle distance or anything like that.
Yeah.
That is telling. And sometimes she gets it wrong. There are a couple characters where she assumes that maybe they're not telling her everything there is, or they're telling her something that isn't true, and she might be off, but that doesn't stop her from trying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And just one other thing, one of the things they say about lying, that, it used to be that they said that if somebody lies, they put their hand over their mouth or their hand by their ear, because it's almost like they're trying not to let it come out. But, and there was a lot of research a number of years ago that pointed to that. Now we know that it might not be that, but people have tells. And the more you get to know somebody, the more you should look for their tells, like when you know they're telling the truth, when you know they're really sorry, when you know they're in a bad mood. And then you take that knowledge and use it in other situations. I remember somebody once saying about my boss, somebody from another company, and I like my boss, but he says, she's got a stingy tell when she shakes hands. She pulls her hand away before you can really firmly grasp it. How interesting is that? And that stinginess, it was good to know because it played out in other ways.
Isn't that interesting? The very typical handshake that you would think would be mundane, not even important, is important. You're actually touching someone. Are you going to give a firm grip? That's very interesting. Put some thought into that. Now, whenever I shake a hand, nice firm grip, don't eye contact.
And also, how fast do they pull it away?
Mm-hmm. Wow, fascinating.
Yeah, that is fascinating. All right, I'm going to change tacks here because this was an underlying theme that really spoke to me, and I wanted to ask you about it. There's this underlying theme of accountability in your story. And, we don't often take responsibility for our actions in today's day and age. And, when you don't, we've noticed a lot of times that could take and have an impact on your health, on your relationships. We see a lot of negative effects of that. And sometimes, conversely, taking accountability can have some positive aspects on our health, right? And on our relationships. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that, because you really approached accountability in this book from an angle we don't often see. And what do you think that translates into in terms of peace in our soul?
Yeah, I do think we have to take accountability, that we can't buy into that storyline that sometimes people reinforce for us. Oh, it's their fault, or how bitchy she can be. What was our role in that? And I think the flip side is to understand that where friends or loved ones haven't taken accountability, and what that tells you about them and how you need to proceed in the future. I'm still incredibly close friends with my college best friend from college. I'm friends with 6 fabulous women I met at Glamour magazine when I got out of college. We have a group called the Turks, but I've let a few friendships go. And what I discovered is that when I tried to give a second chance, they did a variation of the thing that bothered me. And it's just, some people they're not good with your secrets. And so you have to ask yourself, do I want to keep having this person as a friend? Or what you can sometimes do, and I taught my daughter this, you move them to a different level of friendship. I had a friend who just could not keep a confidence, but we had a very interesting shared history. So I just moved her from A friend to C friend. I just never tell her anything. And I don't think she ever noticed. And I don't see her as much, but it was a way to deal with something that she wasn't fully accountable for, but I didn't want to totally let the friendship go. So I just simply shifted it. So it works both ways. We have to be accountable ourselves, and we have to ask ourselves, is a friend or loved one being fully accountable for what they did to us? Because if they're not, we're just going to go right back there all over again.
Oh, absolutely. And, I was thinking about this in the context of today's social media, where reputations and careers can be made or destroyed in a moment, and taking accountability has even higher consequences sometimes. And
Yeah.
so I was really thinking about that with your story.
Yes, and I think, Kristen, the other part of that is the whole mob approach. I had a friend ruined by social media for a mistake, and just her whole career was ruined. And it's been really tragic. She's a fantastic person. And she was judged by people who, where's their accountability? I think it's people want us to be accountable as they're members of the mob, but we don't know anything about their lives. Are they are they scot-free in terms of their own failings? And so I think it's really frightening what is happening to people because of social media today, not being given a second chance, people not being allowed to speak places because they have a different point of view. And hopefully there'll be some backlash against this, and we'll be more forgiving, and we'll be more understanding and open to hearing other people who think differently than we do.
Yeah, excellent. Well put.
I agree. I feel like this social media is propaganda spreading. People are not allowed to tell their own true story. And I also think it's a little, people love the theatrics and the gossip column. It's, we want bigger, better, dirtier,
Juicier. Yeah.
juicier stories. And we don't really want the truth. We want something entertaining, and it's very terrifying. And I also have to say, I love what you said about friendships, because we've talked about it before, Kristen and I, but I'm a very big believer in boundaries as I get older. And I always say, if someone shows you who they are the first time, believe them.
Yeah, oh yeah, great Toni Morrison line. Yeah, and people do. They will tell you who they are. They'll say, "Oh, I'm a bit of a flake at times," or, "I can be tough on my friends." Well, watch out then.
And believe them. See, all this, readers, you are going to be thoroughly entertained. This book is a lot of fun. You're going to be able to crack the codes, but it's some deep thinking going on here, some self-exploration, maybe find out a little something about you, or maybe even someone in your life. And that's what we love about this book. That's what we love about fiction. You've got to get this book by Kate White, Between Two Strangers. And in the meantime, Kate, can you give us a clue what you're working on next?
Oh, thank you for asking. I'm just getting ready to hand in the 2024 book, and it's about a woman who breaks off an engagement with a guy who's really nice, but she's just not in love with him, and he commits suicide. And she is just horrified that she has somehow played a role in this. But as she looks at it more closely, she thinks he was murdered, and it becomes her mission to figure out and prove that was the case. So it's a disturbing topic, and I did a lot of research that was fascinating, but I've thoroughly enjoyed working on it.
Oh, that sounds like a fantastic book. And it's a real life issue. I know of someone that's happened to in real life. So this is what's so great about fiction. But now you've woven in a little murder into or a little something more suspicious into this story. So this is going to be great. We can't
Great.
wait. And so, readers, in the meantime, you're going to want to connect with Kate White. You can find her on her website. You can find her on Facebook, Instagram. On Facebook, there's a newsletter you can sign up for. And I see you've got a contest going on there.
Oh, yes. Every month a contest, you can win a copy of the book and a $25 Amazon gift certificate.
That's fun. Kate, it's been a pleasure. As always, we just love your writing, love talking to you. You are multi-talented, and we're just so happy you're on to writing now, and just keep it up.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Kristen.
Absolutely. Have a wonderful day.
You too.
Yeah, so much to talk about with Kate White there. So many deep issues, Kristen. I don't even know where to start, but what hit me strong is what she was talking about. I remember last time when she was on, she said at Cosmo, they brought in a lot of psychologists and therapists to write different articles, self-help articles. And she learned so much while working on these magazines. And when she said body language and lies, it's just intriguing to me. How do you find out if someone's lying or not? And I've only come across this now in my old age. Just this year, I said to my husband, you know what? I'm beginning to realize when people tell me something, I automatically want to believe it's true. It's not true a lot of times. So what do you look for if you're looking to see if someone's lying or maybe fibbing? You see anything in anybody?
Yeah, I think for me at least, I always look to see whether people's words line up with their actions. And some of that requires more of a longer term perspective, dating someone for a while, hanging out with them for a while. And I always am looking for that consistency. Do they do what they say they're going to do? Do they say what they mean? And do they mean what they say? So for me, it is more of a longer term analysis. In terms of me just meeting someone, there's the obvious ones. Is what they're saying even logical? Is it possible? Does this ring true? And there's kind of that gut discernment that I use when I'm speaking with people. And I interact with a lot of people, over the course of a day through my work. And you become very adept, I think, at assessing whether or not somebody is being truthful.
Mm-hmm.
How
And
about you?
I feel the same way. My one pet peeve that I find sometimes with people when they're saying something to me and they won't look me in the eye at all, and they're looking over here and they make a statement and they purposely avoid eye contact. And I almost want to turn and get them in the face and say, look at me. What are you saying? And right away, I'm like, something sketchy with that. This is that body language, I guess, that Kate was talking about. I want to read up and learn more about that.
Yeah. So I'd like to talk a little bit more about this accountability issue because we don't often see people publicly taking accountability for something that they've done. And even when there's some pretty dire consequences, or especially when there are. And I was wondering what you were thinking about that issue. Because to
I
me,
like that you brought that up. I mean, I think all of us have had some sort of experience with people in our life, business, family, friends, who do something questionable, maybe something malicious, maybe something illegal. You could take it to that extreme, and refuse to admit that they did it. They will never say they're sorry. They will never even say, hey, I did this to you. I didn't mean to do it this way. I don't know how it got out of control, whatever reason. And it's true what you and Kate said. If that is the type of person that can never, ever, ever say, hey, I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. Hey, I should have done this differently. Then I think, in my wisdom at this age, that is someone you need to set a boundary. And if they're able to do that to you, your business associate, your family, or your friend, they're able to do it to anyone. And that may be somebody that you don't want to associate with.
yeah. And I think we need to do a really good job of teaching our children or people around us that we are in that role with, that there's a big difference between forgiveness and setting a boundary, right? We can forgive people. We can all move forward and not hold a grudge and not let that poison eat us. But we can also put a boundary in that we don't allow them into our inner circle. We don't have that intimacy of relationship with them because they are people who will tend to hurt you or hurt others in your orbit. So I didn't have a good understanding of that growing up. And it wasn't until, you have life experience and you get older that you start being able to separate forgiveness from asserting a boundary. The fact that those are two separate things.
And that's very wise, because everyone thinks automatically, I am not going to forgive, because if I forgive, it makes it all right. No, I believe you forgive so that you don't carry that on your shoulder anymore, carry that hurt around. But if I'll give people a few times of hurt. I hurt people mistakenly. I don't mean to. I'm more of an empath. I'll give you a couple hurt tries. But after that, I'm going to wish you well, and I'm going to want good things for you, but I'm going to set up a little line and say, I've seen it. It's happened too many times now. you and I can have a different type of relationship. Like Kate said, there's different types of relationships and friendships, but you can't come any closer. And it's a healthy boundary. And it's actually good for both parties, not just one.
Oh, I agree. You hope that you included, you can look at the wreckage of relationships and grow through those experiences and identify where you were the person who contributed to it going south. And so I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, that was another thing Kate brought up that I thought was really great. Yes, we also have to be able to look at something and listen to what someone's telling us and say, gosh, what did I do wrong? What could I have done better? Maybe this isn't as perfect as I thought it was. Maybe I didn't. This is extremely humbling, but it shows huge maturity and extraordinary wisdom to be able to face a mistake or an error, correct it, move on from it. It doesn't mean it's over. It means try again. Try again. And then the new you, like the new magazine, is going to be better, 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 better because you're willing to look at where you went wrong. I thought that was really some great wisdom there by Kate White.
Absolutely. As always,
just love having her back again. And so listeners, just going to give a shout out to, who, Mr. Mark Carey, working remotely now onto other great things, but still doing some editing and sound engineering for us here. And we're going to leave you with a few storm predictions. We've got a very, very wonderful calendar of books coming your way and authors. David Baldacci, Simply Lies. Susan Meissner, Only the Beautiful. Chris Bojalian, Lioness. Madeline Martin, The Keeper of Hidden Books. Bryn Turnbull, Paris Deception. Katie Quinn and Janie Chang, The Phoenix Crown. Heather Gudenkoff, Overnight Guest. Ellie Banks, aka Macy Yates, One Little Spark. Matthew Quirk, Inside Threat. I'm not done. Sorry, just a few more. Colleen Oakley, The Mostly True Story of Tanner and Louise. Anthony McCartan, Going Zero. Nikki Ehrlich, The Measure. Juan Gabriel Vasquez, Retrospective. Then Lisa Scottolini with Loyalty.
And thank you, listeners, for listening. We are growing every week. We are so appreciative. We ask that you continue to spread our links and our socials because, again, this is the kind of debate and discussion that we want to promote. We love talking about these deep topics and having these authors continue to come on and go there with us. So we ask that you stay on the radar with us by looking at our website, bookstormpodcast.com. You can find us on Instagram, on Twitter. You can follow some of our TikToks that are a lot of fun. And if you'd like to see us in person or one of our authors that we interview, you can find us on YouTube. Just search for Bookstorm and Podcast and we should come right up. Until next time, one of the best ways to brave the storm is to dive down deep into life-changing fiction.